The first thing I remember about Suncoast is when Larry Baucom came to me about 20 years ago with a dream or vision that he had about a church here in Sarasota County. I'd known Larry for 10 years before that, and I believed in him. And so from that dream came the Suncoast Community Church. I was asked from the very beginning to be one of the directors of the church, and I've enjoyed doing that now since the church's inception 18 years ago. Most of my career has been as pastor of churches in Florida as well as in the Midwest and even out on the west part of the country. I'm also an instructor, a professor at Anderson University. I teach critical thinking and leadership and vocation, finding your calling type thing to adults. I've also taught courses for Purdue University, sociology. But my career technically is a pastor, and I now pastor a church in the Midwest. When Larry sent me a copy of the playbook, I remember exactly how I felt as I read it. I was elated. I was just so thrilled for Larry and to read what I felt many of us believed, even in the mainstream of the church. The church that I pastor is a conservative church. It's in a traditional denomination. But Larry didn't say anything in his playbook that I don't agree with. I think there are many of us, certainly in academia, but I think in the mainstream of pastors and the church, certainly there are those who would not support it, but there are many who do. I think it needed to be said. I felt the church is being desperate. It's losing its identity in the American culture. It's getting to be a desperate attempt to find something that works. I don't sense that in Larry's playbook. I sense a call to go back to the historical Jesus and recover his teachings and redefine them or reinterpret them for the culture of our century today. I've been doing some study on the progress or lack of progress of the church in America. It's not a pretty picture. Many denominations are in the decline. In fact, for the first year in its 100-year history, the denomination that I pastor in saw a decline in the United States and Canada last year for the first time. There's obviously a shift going on in our culture, and that shift is leading people away from many churches. When I read this article, and knowing Larry as I do, and knowing the history of Suncoast, I'm confident that this could be the start of a movement of God in which there's revitalization and there's the gospel preached in its truest form, not only preached but lived and modeled by the leadership of this church. I wish I lived here. I wish this was part of my church. I wish this was my church. And I'm excited about its future, mostly because of this article and what it states. To me, it makes the gospel relevant to ordinary people as Christ intended for it to be. I think out of the playbook, the one thing that meant the most to me was the expression of the scriptures. We don't worship the Bible. We worship Christ. He's the only one. The Bible's not an idol of ours, but it has rich stories that need to be understood in the culture in which they were written and read, and they need to be understood in our culture as well. And Larry's view of the scriptures, as he puts it in that paper, is the view that makes the Bible alive for me. It makes it meaningful. It takes it out of the realm of being a textbook and actually being a book through which God reveals himself and what he's doing in history.